any questions, we'd be happy to respond. I'd ask you to raise your hand through Zoom. I think the first question is from Telemundo. We can promote them and ask them to.
Yes, my name is Natalia Fernandez from Telemundo, and I wanted to know if you have reached any people from outside, and how have you responded?
We were listening to St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch there, just giving a quick update, but more or less than anything else, taking some questions from local media there as they're trying to figure out, what's going on. Of course, he's saying stay in place there tonight. This is the best place to be. It'd be a great place to be right now. Just kind of staying at home and letting this thing go by. But we've got a job to do.
Right. But I think what the mayor Ken Welch was saying, especially important, is stay in place because first responders cannot get to you right now. They are not going out to rescue anyone as we speak. So I think as the winds die down and the storm passes through, then hopefully they'll be able to get to you. But for right now, stay hunkered down until this storm passes.
That's why the mandatory evacuations are in place. They might not be able to get to you. So let's check back in now with Robert Boyd. He's been tracking conditions in Tampa. He's right outside our station at Raymond James Stadium. Robert?
Okay, so right now we are right across the street from Raymond James Stadium. I'm sorry if I came in a little late when you tossed it to me, but I could hardly hear anything because this wind is just whipping around. It's very loud, it's howling, and it's pushing me around a little bit. Now, I know these aren't hurricane-strength winds. This is not what we're seeing down south. However, it's still pretty strong out here and pretty dangerous. You don't want to leave the house right now. We're seeing debris fly down the streets. If you take a look at the roadsides, they're flopping around a little bit. The trees obviously are getting bent over, and it is definitely a storm right now, and a storm you have to take seriously. Fortunately, I have not seen many cars on the road, which is a good sign, because this could be tough to drive through. And like I said, Raymond James Stadium right across the street. Nobody playing any football there tonight. The Bucs are supposed to play the Chiefs on Sunday, but today I don't think you can throw a football more than 5 yards again because this wind is getting really strong. I've been out here on the second floor facing Ray J the entire day, and this is the strongest I've seen it. And I'm going to assume it's only going to get a little bit stronger. And the rain is just coming from every direction, but especially right at you. It's that really quick whipping rain. It's not like it's a downpour, but it's just being controlled by the wind. So again, if you don't have to be outside and you're in Tampa right now, I would say go inside. Definitely stay safe and stay in shelter. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Robert, thank you. And obviously, we want to keep our eye on the ball here, but a lot of people have questions about that game on Sunday night for the Bucs and the Chiefs. The NFL just announcing that if they do have to move this game, they're going to move it to Minneapolis there at US Bank Stadium. It's a big if, though. Right now, they are seeing what happens with this storm as to whether or not they have to move it up to Minneapolis. The NFL not giving a timeline here, though, on when they're going to make that decision. My guess is probably on Friday afternoon, maybe. They want to see the conditions of the field, see if it can withstand a big game, especially on national TV on Sunday night.
Right, and if you're a Bucs fan, no worries. They're practicing in Miami. So they got the whole week to practice. They're going to get ready for the game, whether it's here or whether it's in Minneapolis. All right, we continue our team coverage now of Hurricane Ian, and I think we're going to Anthony Hill.
Yeah, he's in Apollo Beach right now checking out the conditions there. Anthony?
Hey guys, we're out here in Apollo Beach. The wind is really picking up right now. One tree's coming down. Now, we haven't personally seen any trees down, but what we have seen are branches down. You can see I'm counting 1, 2, 3, maybe at least 4 branches that have been knocked down. I mean, you got to think about it. Over the next 36 hours, we're expected to receive nonstop rain. And, that rain has to go somewhere. It goes into the ground. It goes into the soil. And that compromises the stability of the tree. The roots that hold the tree into the ground, it compromises that. And then you add insult to injury, and that's the wind. As Ian is making his way from Southwest Florida to where I am right now in Apollo Beach, this wind, which is pretty extreme right now, as you can see, it's going to intensify even more. Some scary stuff, actually, when you think about it. And we're not trying to scare anybody, obviously. We just want to inform you guys. And this is the reason why we're telling you that you want to stay indoors. We actually just saw 3 people. 3 people are here. We can see them right there who decided to come out. We're telling people to stay indoors because, these trees can fall, branches can fall, you can be injured, and we don't want that to happen at all. We did speak to one woman who lives here in Apollo Beach, and she told us she's just happy that the hurricane is not going to be as extreme as we originally thought it was going to be, specifically in this area. Take a listen.
As you can see, the hurricane is coming. You guys are from here, but how do you feel so far?
I feel pretty good about it. I feel like we're dodging a lot of it from what the turn has done. So we're just hoping that turn continues. And I feel like we've seen worse. So I think we'll get through it.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to stay away from us, at least the heavy stuff. Watching all the weather guys, and Dennis Phillips, and all the professionals, and yeah, they're predicting it to go a little more south. So just wanted to come check it out here.
And again, back out here, weather conditions. As you can see, I really don't have to say much. The wind and rain is intensifying. I mean, we've been out here reporting all day, and it seems like each time we come out here, it does get worse, as we expected, as the hurricane rather makes its way from Southwest Florida into our area. So that's one of the reasons why we're telling people to stay inside. We just saw 3 people who were out here. They just left, thank goodness. But we're telling people to stay inside. I'm Anthony Hill in Apollo Beach. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you, Anthony. And our Paul LeGrone is in Polk County right now, checking out conditions there.
And he's live for us in Lakeland. Paul, how are the conditions out where you are now?
Yeah, it's getting a little worse, right? The volume's starting to get turned up here on Hurricane Ian. You still see people here driving, though. This is Massachusetts and Maine at the corner there. And I'll tell you, one of the stories starting to emerge, I think, is the fact that hotels stayed open and accommodated people. I know where we are right now, they've taken in a lot of people who evacuated from Clearwater, St. Pete, and Point South. Let's go on a walk, shall we? Come walk with me as we go outside. I just wanted to take a quick measure of the wind speed before I sent it to my man Chuck from St. Petersburg, who came over to Lakeland to ride this thing out in this hotel here off of Massachusetts Avenue. I mean, guys, it could be much worse right now, right? I mean, we know it's going to get worse than this as I cross the street. You can see the palm trees are definitely blowing. And, I tell you, depending on when you come to me, if you come to me in 5 minutes, it'll be raining sideways and the wind will be blowing pretty hard. I'm going to get a reading on the wind here. I mean, it's still saying gusts 50 miles an hour, sustained around 38, 40. I don't know if it's a little heavier than that. It just depends on the timing. Let me walk a little bit over here. You can see me, but you don't see people walking out in the street anymore. You still see some cars out there. But I want to send it to Chuck from St. Petersburg. This is what he told me earlier about his experience over the last 24 to 48 hours. It's a journey I think a lot of people can relate to. Listen in. Why did you come to
because I live in a Zone A flood zone. So it shows storm surge of 4 to 6 feet, so which is right at my doorstep.
What have the last 24 hours been like for you?
Very harrowing, actually. Trying to pack at the last minute, prep the house before we leave, and it's just the unknown that is just really stressful.
So you're here in Lakeland. What is your plan from here?
Just to ride it out and kind of hope for the best.
Have you been through a hurricane before?
I've been through Charlie, which took a very similar path to Ian, but it wasn't nearly as strong. So, yeah, this is a first for me.
And you feel safe? I mean,
I do here. That remains to be seen, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are going through the same thing, right? And they came here to write it out. I'm just watching some folks here still driving around, still kind of getting a sense of where things are. The wind's starting to pick back up again, but no one out on the street. And I really do think that, one of the, I don't know if you can call it a success, but certainly a confidence story is the fact that, the governor said, look, there's shelters available, obviously, but he also made it known that there was going to be hotels that are available that people could book. And people have been doing that up until the last minute. And guys, how you doing? You doing all right? Good? You writing it out?
I was actually just watching this morning, so it's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're hanging in there.
All right.
We're from St. Petersburg,
St.
so
Petersburg.
yeah.
See another couple from St. Petersburg. Stay dry, guys. Stay safe. So that's the story. And they found options over here in Lakeland and other places. And so I think that's a good thing. I mean, the fact that they were able to rearrange their plans to get to safety. And I think a lot of people are seeking shelter where they can, including motels, hotels, and the fact that it was open. and we still got this thing to come through here around 8 o'clock tonight, and further after that. So that's where we are right now, guys.
Yeah, Paul, that's what Dennis and Greg they were just both telling us that you'll be seeing some stronger winds definitely, but it's going to be a few hours away. So just hang tight and stay safe in the meantime, right? Maybe get some rest before the big storm comes.
Exactly. I sure will. I know some people don't have power, family included, so I know that's tough to deal with. But I know, again, they've got people positioned to get the power back on. So just stay safe.
That's right. All right. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, and speaking of that, as we track more power outages here, make sure you charge your phone so you can stay up to date on all the news regarding this storm.
Yeah, and be sure to download our ABC Action News app. You want to grab your phone right now, open your camera, point it at your screen. That QR code right there will connect you to our apps in the App Store and on Google Play. And there you can find the live interactive radar in your own neighborhood. Plus, here's the best part. You can watch ABC Action News and ABC Action Weather 24/7, even if you lose power to your house.
And no matter where you are the next few days, we want to make sure that you're able to get up-to-the-minute information on Hurricane Ian, during the storm, after the storm, whether it's the track of Ian or emergency orders. That's why we've partnered with these 6 local radio stations. They will simulcast our coverage so you can hear us by using a battery-powered radio if the power goes out, or a weather radio. And by the way, if you still have, your phone doesn't lose power, if you use the iHeartRadio app, you can get any of these channels. So you might say, I don't have an old school radio. I can't listen to you when the power goes out. Well, you can if you have the iHeartRadio app to listen to any of these radio stations. 99.5 WQIK, 98.7 The Shark, 92.5 Maxima, Q105 Wild, 94.1, and Talk 1010 AM.
All right. Yeah, Dennis, I wanted to just mention real quick that as you talked about, the storm is actually moving faster than initially thought, right? So it will be through our state, through Thursday night?
By tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, a big change. You're right. And by the way, just following up what Jameson said too, you can also download our app and actually watch us right on through the coverage. And you go to abcactionnews.com/apps, APPS, abcactionnews.com/apps, APPS, and you literally, on your phone, you can watch us. You can see what's going on here as we continue to track a pretty powerful storm. But these numbers sometimes can be a little misleading to folks because 145 mile an hour winds, you look at that and you say, well, is that the whole picture? No, it's a very, very small part of it right around the eye. The overwhelming majority of the winds around here are probably between about maybe 40 and 70 miles an hour. Right along the eye wall is where the bulk of the heaviest winds are. And that's why we still have this extreme wind warning in the purple area from Arcadia over to Sarasota down to Fort Myers. The area really hasn't moved much in the last couple of hours in terms of where the highest risk is. And as is the case with most tropical systems, just to the north and east of the eye wall, right in that area there, is where the heaviest wind is. It's also where the surge is. But as Wendy mentioned, I mean, not much of this storm has done what the models were predicting for days. First of all, the track was way up north, which is why a lot of folks evacuated with good reason, because we had evacuations in Pinellas. We just took a power hit ourselves right here. So we are still on the air. You can't see me, but you can hear me. So we're back in radio days.
Have it to me before.
So again, we do see what a lot of folks have moved from here to here. And I know that's freaking out a lot of folks because they think they're going to be right in the middle of the storm. Well, yes and no, because what's happening is this storm will weaken rather dramatically. Matter of fact, the new track comes out in a couple of minutes, and the Hurricane Center could possibly say by the time it makes it into Polk County, it's a minimal hurricane or maybe even a tropical storm. But right now, if you live in Hardee County, if you live in extreme southern Sarasota County or areas down south towards Charlotte County, and usually, we think about a broadcast area, people would watch us from wherever, but not when streaming is on the table, because we have a lot of folks all over the place that can watch us. So you may be watching us in Fort Myers as we are showing all of the flooding, the surge that comes in. Speaking of surge, we'll say this again, high tide is coming up right now. And a lot of places, a lot of sources are saying, oh, the high tide's coming up now, we're going to surge. No, we're not. not at least this high tide, because we have an offshore flow. The wind is blowing offshore. So the water is being pushed out. We're not going to flood when we have that water pushing out from surging. Now we will from heavy rain. And there is that green box right there that flooded, and it's actually a flash flood advisory for areas south of Sarasota, all the heavy rain around the eye wall of Ian. Here are the latest numbers, the latest advisories. We now actually have a hurricane warning on the East Coast because after it weakens and moves into the Atlantic, we think it's going to redevelop. And if that's the case, then we could see this re-strengthen into a hurricane. So this is the updated track. Notice tonight at 8 o'clock, category 3 with winds of 120 miles an hour. It's a 4 right now. And it's interesting, Greg and I were talking about this. I mean, it's looking for a pretty sharp turn right here. To me, it's not really looking that way. It's just kind of going straight north-northeast. And if that's the case, it could very easily make a track a little bit more to the south. But regardless, you see that 3 right there in Polk County, like, oh, man, we're going to get these serious winds in Polk. Yes, you will see gusts of 60 to 80 miles an hour. I'll say this again. Think of Irma 5 years ago. From Hillsborough County north, it's almost the exact same setup. Pinellas County, 40 to 65. Hillsborough County, 50 to 70. Pasco County, 50 to 65. Hernando, Citrus, 45 to 60. Those are the gusts that I think you're going to see. Eastern Hillsborough County, maybe as high as 85 in a few spots. Manatee higher. Polk County is the one area we're just going to have to wait on. I don't think you're going to see anywhere near this, but I do think you could see winds gusting from 85 to 105. And if that's the case, like with Irma, you would get an extreme wind warning. So that's something that we're going to have to watch very closely. And the new track, new numbers come out from the Hurricane Center in about 5 or 10 minutes. Last report, again, winds gusting nearly 100 miles an hour along the coast. St. Pete had a gust of 75 miles an hour. Apollo Beach had one of 57. But I had a former employee here actually sent me a picture a couple of hours ago. The water at Apollo Beach was 10 feet below average. That's because it all was being pushed out of the bay. So again, clearly there will be no surge issue with this high tide. But by 4 a.m. tomorrow, clearly it's not 38 in Hernando. That's just ridiculous. Bad data there. But at the end of the day, well, wind gusts maybe temperatures. That'll be in January or February, right? But at the end of the day, when you get a west wind coming in or a northwest wind late tonight and tomorrow, I think that's when the surge possibility returns. So if you're worried about water, I think the best opportunity for surge would probably be between about 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. Jason, do you have something going on there? So a buoy report in the Sarasota Bay is having a gust of 106 miles an hour. And it makes a lot of sense over water because the air that travels over water, there's very little friction, so the winds aren't going to come down. But the minute those winds go over land, they have a tendency to weaken. I remember with Hurricane Jeanne back in 2004, Fred Howard Park had a wind gust of about 90 miles an hour when everybody else was about 60 because the air was coming right off the Gulf and back in. So these are the wind numbers, like we're saying. These are the forecast numbers over the next 12 to 24 hours. Nothing we can't handle in Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Honestly, all of the areas from Pinellas and Hillsborough County north, I think gusts of about 45 to 60. There will be a few spots that are going to get heavier winds. It just works that way. But overall, by far, the strongest winds would be southern Manatee and then cutting across over into Polk County. Let's go over to Greg and see. Greg, it looks like you're taking a look at new tornado watches over on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, so the Weather Service has most of Central and South Florida a tornado watch until 5. They've now issued a new one along the I-95 corridor, and it looks like this is the one that's going to take over after the one at 5 expires in the next 19 minutes. And really, the tornadoes earlier had all been in this band that is now over the Bahamas. It seems like the Gulf Stream off the East Coast has been feeding some of these outer bands near I-95 and really giving them enough energy to produce some stronger rotating storms. Though this batch of storms rolling into Orange County, coming up out of Osceola County, south of downtown Orlando, any one of these could spin up as well. They'll be brief, and remember, they're usually pretty weak. Most tornadoes in landfalling hurricanes are the EF0 variety. That's the weakest that you get. We're really much more concerned about the wind down to the south. Jason just told you there in your Lido Key a report of 106-mile-an-hour winds in Sarasota. That's the backside of that eye wall. That's what we were analyzing on the radar. We'll continue to do so. That's still to roll in. So the winds are coming back Sarasota County off the Gulf as the backside of this thing rolls through. And I really think when you tally some of these higher winds down the line, it's going to be this northwest quadrant of the storm that's going to produce some of the heaviest gusts, because that's where all the rain is. It's that rain that's going to push the wind down towards the surface. So looking downstream, Southern Hillsborough, Manatee, Hardy, DeSoto, Southern Polk County, Highlands County, this is all moving in your direction. In fact, there's a heavier band now coming up on Southern Hillsborough County. Now, I just looked at some of the winds here. This is very close to the National Weather Service radar site in Ruskin. I'm not seeing anything I'm concerned about, but there could definitely be, where you see some of these reds here, gusts in excess of 40 or 50 miles an hour. Down to the south, from downtown Sarasota through western Hardy, DeSoto counties, or through western portions of DeSoto County down to Charlotte and Lee County. That's an extreme wind wave. Still goes on for another hour and 18 minutes towards the 6 o'clock hour. Still looking at this eye wall, the backside of it, back over the Gulf of Mexico, and this is where some of the heaviest rains and winds are. You see these rain bands. This one now, this is the one up here north of downtown Sarasota that produced that really strong wind gust out over the Gulf. That's rotating back into Bradenton. So Bradenton over towards the Skyway, Palmetto, Lakewood Ranch, looks like over towards the Meadows. Very gusty winds in this. These could gust 70 to 80 miles an hour at times. And then you get it into the main part of that eye wall, this dark red here over 75 into southern portions of Manatee County. Arcadia, the winds have been increasing. They'll continue to build. And now when you kind of transfer this or track it back, Wauchula, you're going to be in this for a while. These heavy rains here on Highway 70, the dark reds, there's probably winds here of about 60, 70, 80, maybe gusting more than that. There's that. Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, no, there it is. Hey, we just had a report of a sustained wind in Cape Coral at 112 miles an hour, and we had a maximum gust at 125, 135. So is that might be the strongest we've seen? Yes,
I think 135 is the strongest we've seen, and Dennis, that's kind of that backside of the eye wall coming back in. I really think a lot of these winds back here that the radar is seeing out over the Gulf still, these are going to roll back in here. I mean, we could still see gusts into the triple digits from Venice, Englewood, down towards Port Charlotte, Cape Coral, Fort Myers. The storm is not done yet. When you look at this area in pink here, some of these heavier winds, it's rolling back into Sarasota, Lee, and Charlotte counties. And we could definitely, after a lull, after being in the eye, see those winds return and turn really, really gusty. To the north, it has not been as bad. We've seen gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour in Tampa over towards St. Pete. The strongest gust I've seen in St. Pete, 74 miles an hour. Now, the gusts out of St. Pete are a little skewed, and that's because Whittier Airport is right on the water. And with an east wind, they're getting the wind right off the bay. So it's always going to be stronger at the bay, and with the airport out in the bay, I think it's reading the maximum wind you could possibly see there in St. Pete. If you actually work your way into the city, into the neighborhoods, the winds are probably gusting below that, maybe in that 60 to 70 mile an hour range. And most of them are going to come in the heaviest rain. So I'm going to be watching the reports now out of the southern portions of the bay, the Skyway. There's a couple of weather stations here in the bay and a couple of buoys. These reds and oranges coming in out of the east, the Parrish area, Riverview, Brandon. If you live in these areas, start getting some gusty winds, get on our social media, @GregDWeather, Twitter, Instagram. Message me. Let me know what your personal weather stations are reading. The Weather Service is actually passing some of those reports over to us, and we in turn will pass them over to the National Weather Service to get a better picture of what folks down the road can expect as Ian continues towards the east and northeast. There you see the power outages. Some of these are going to be still widespread in the darker oranges and reds. But as Ian continues into Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands counties, I think we're going to turn to more of a sporadic power outage situation. A lot of this is really going to be dependent on tree branches falling on power lines, saturated soils, trees toppling over onto those power lines. That's where we're going to see some of those issues. Here are the current winds right now. These are sustained winds, not gusts. So you see It's windy into tropical storm strength across Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Still lighter than that. We're approaching tropical storm strength in Pasco County. Below that in Hernando and over towards Citrus County. Back over towards Polk, winds increasing now, maybe near 50 miles an hour over towards Fort Meade. And then the wind's really building Hardy and DeSoto. This is where those that extreme wind warning is for western DeSoto County. Of course, the strongest winds, Venice, Englewood, Northport, over towards southern Manatee County. And that's where we're going to see some of those wind gusts at about 90 to 100 miles an hour at times. This is Bradenton right now, live pictures. As you see there, this is what we're seeing, the strong gusty winds really increasing. You see the winds blowing the palms there, occasionally gusts 70 to 80 miles an hour in a couple of locations. The wind, though, offshore. So we haven't had an issue with the surge, as Dennis has been talking all along, despite high tide cycles today, because the winds have been out into the Gulf, the water's been pushed out into the Gulf, and we haven't had to deal with a high surge. Tomorrow, as Ian lifts to the north and turns back on shore in the bay, we may get some higher than normal tide. By then, the storm will be weaker, the winds will be weaker. So I think that's a much lower concern for us going into the future. Tampa potential wind gusts for the next several hours. I think it's where we're at right now. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of gusts higher than this, but you see the worst of it right there through the overnight. And I think by tomorrow morning, especially once we head towards midday, conditions will improve quite a bit. So this is the European model forecast. This just came in this afternoon. So this is a new run, some of the potential wind gusts. And I think this is on target. You see some of the stronger winds generally in our southern counties, Manatee, Sarasota, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands counties. And then depending on the track, you could, if the western eye wall were to get into southeastern Hillsborough or southern Polk County, then get some of those winds into Polk County as well. We'll be watching that very carefully. Now, if you live in Pinellas, over towards Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus County, you're farther west from the center, so the winds here likely going to be weaker, especially once out towards the Gulf. And remember, during the overnight, they're mainly going to be out, turning more onshore as Ian lifts up off the East Coast and eventually makes its way off the Space Coast, where it could maybe even regain some strength before making a second visit up towards the Carolinas and into southern Georgia. Once the wind starts to die down, our second focus is going to be the freshwater flooding. And that is still a concern for some places. Flood watches are up. Rivers are running high. We're kind of at the tail end of a rainy season. We've seen a lot of rain. And to put down 2 months of the rainy season's rain down in 24, 36 hours, that is going to cause some creeks, rivers, and streams to rise. This is additional rainfall on top of what we've already had. And you kind of see where it tracks. It's tracking where that western side of the eye wall is going to go. That's going to be through Polk County and then eventually off the East Coast. Some amount may be in excess of 4 to 6 inches of rain, maybe an additional 7 or 8 inches, especially once you make your way out towards Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands County. So I'm going to toss it back to you guys there at the desk. We're going to continue to watch things, reports coming in. We're waiting for that new advisory coming up in the next few minutes from the Hurricane Center. So we'll be back with that in just a few.
All right, going to be waiting for that. All right, thank you, Greg. Next here, we want to go to our Vanessa O'Riza, who is standing by on Clearwater Beach.
Hey there, Jameson. You know, the wind is still keeping steady. In fact, since our last hit within the past hour, we can actually hear the roaring of the wind closer to the water. We moved locations just to give you another idea of Clearwater Beach. This is kind of the main strip where you usually see all of the tourists. You have your restaurants and your shops here. You can see with the palm trees just blowing in the wind there. Pretty steady here. The rain had actually lessened up just a little bit within the past 30 to 40 minutes. And a lot of businesses, when you come down this strip, you'll see this. They've got sandbags just protecting their doors, any area that they may feel as though it may creep in. The good news here, though, is we've driven around, and even here on this strip, we haven't seen any flooding, which is great. And as we walk down here, another business with a sandbag, and you have a lot of businesses that are boarded up with plywood here. Really not too many projectiles, if you will. The only thing that we are seeing are these palm fronds here that are kind of just scattered about around this whole strip, and as well as other areas of Clearwater Beach. Around 11 o'clock, noon, we headed down to the Belle Isle area, just kind of scope it out, get a feel and a sense of how it was in that area, just a little bit more south of Clearwater Beach. It actually was a bit more clear than what it is here at the beach. We didn't see as many palm fronds down on the streets like we see here right now. So that's really good. And we're not seeing anybody on the streets. Everybody's staying inside. The only vehicles that we are truly seeing, those are Clearwater police SUVs. They're monitoring the streets, kind of going up and down, checking and making sure that everyone is okay. I will tell you though, because this is Florida and we always have something interesting in Florida, there is one business that is open here in Clearwater Beach. That is a bar. We spoke with the bartender earlier today, very nice gentleman. He said, we were open last night. We stayed open until 2 o'clock in the morning. They are open right now. And I asked him, I said, what would be the line in the sand, if you will? What will make you close up shop? He said, first of all, I'm here on my own accord. My managers are not making me stay here. He said, I feel safe. I'm watching the weather. I'm watching what happens. And if the wind picks up to maybe 50 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, he said, then you know what? I will go ahead. And I want to turn around actually real quick because you see that sign just flew off. And luckily that's all we're kind of seeing. But just to give you an idea of how those winds are picking up right now. So hopefully it'll kind of just stay this way. The rain not really too heavy. We're going to stay out here, drive around, see if there's anything else going on right now. But for the meantime, I'm going to toss it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. And we're going to tell you this just coming in here. Governor Ron DeSantis has requested President Biden approve a major disaster declaration and 100% federal cost share for the next 60 days for any costs associated with Hurricane Ian.
Meantime, checking in with crews who are now feeling those intense winds from Hurricane Ian. Reporter Austin Pollock is at a hotel in Nokomis, just outside of Venice in Sarasota County.
Well, wind has really picked up here in Nokomis. Again, this is halfway between Tampa and Fort Myers. The wind and the rain that is hitting my back, I would say it's almost painful. It hurts. It's a sharp pain coming up against my back. This wind is intense. We know that the hurricane made landfall not too far from here, actually about 37 miles in Cayo Costa, Florida. Again, that's about 37 miles from where we're standing right now. You hear that some of the wind does subside just for maybe a couple of seconds at best, but it's really picking up here. It's really intense. But we know, again, the hurricane has made landfall about 37 miles from here. Again, we're going to continue to follow everything that's going on here on Florida's West Coast. But for now, back to you.
All right, thank you. Meantime, Orlando is an area many local folks evacuated to when the storm was heading right towards us. But of course, that changed in the last 24 to 48 hours.
And that's where we find our reporter, Katie LeGrone, joining us live tonight. Katie?
Hey guys, yeah, we can really start to feel those feeder bands here in downtown Orlando. You can see just around me, you can hear even the howling of the wind. We're just getting a gust right now. Stand by. We've got some rain coming in. This is a short while ago. We also heard some thunder. This is all part of the process of Ian moving closer to Orlando.
Central Florida bracing for Hurricane Ian. A monster storm still on track to move across Florida's central region late Wednesday into Thursday as a Category 1 hurricane, with Orlando, its flagship city and tourist hub, possibly feeling major impacts.
Yes, we're visiting right now, Florida.
But Ian, not enough to keep these tourists away. The family drove from North Carolina, arriving Wednesday morning, just ahead of the storm.
Why did you come to Florida knowing that there's a hurricane barreling down on us?
Well, we wanted to see. Hopefully it works out. We have bought our tickets for Disney.
But seeing Mickey Mouse will have to wait. In a rare move, the happiest place on earth has shut down all of its parks, at least through Thursday. As concerns remain high, Ian could bring historic flooding to the area, with rainfall possibly reaching up to 2 feet in some parts.
I'm from Phoenix, so this is all wild to me.
Some residents can't help but be concerned, even Florida natives.
You have to be concerned, right? I expect probably the power to go out a little bit, some nice debris, hurricane debris, but nothing too crazy. I don't think it's too crazy over here.
Very worried right now.
But Jeff Norwood's mind less on himself, more on his sister, who lives in Fort Myers.
They're getting it hard. There's going to be a lot of people with a lot of loss, and it's sad to think of. But Mother Nature, nothing you can do. Just hold on and wish for the best.
And you can see just a couple branches down here at Ayola Park in downtown Orlando. And I want to show you this couple. Actually, you guys just went down to take a selfie. Yeah. All right. So you got your selfie and you've got your helmets on. But
I'm serving tiki drinks right now.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. So yeah, clearly here in Orlando, things are starting to pick up, but people are still kind of keeping some humor about it. But obviously, this is going to get a lot more serious this evening as conditions here in Orlando continue to deteriorate overnight. For now, we are live in Orlando. Katie LeGros, back to you.
All right, Katie, thank you. And you heard in that story there that some of those folks are there. Obviously, Orlando is like the theme park capital of the world. Disney's closed down till Friday, so they're going to have to cool their heels for a couple of days. So
Find something else to do.
yeah, figure something else out. And now we want to head to Sarasota.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Mary O'Connell joining us live from there with the latest conditions out there. Mary, have things deteriorated again?
It's pretty windy out here, and we'll get those little bursts of gusts that are coming in and out. We're at Fruitville Elementary. This is one of the 12 county-run shelters here in Sarasota County. So we're kind of in this enclave that heads into the cafeteria here. And I'd like to say all these strangers that we were with, now we have 330 of our closest friends that we've been spending the day. We've been here since about 10 a.m. And as you can see, it's pretty windy over here. We're about 5 miles from the closest shoreline in Sarasota proper, if you will. And you can see just behind me right now, it is pretty windy and rainy. The small branches have been falling off these trees onto the ground all day long, blowing them around. We've got whipping winds that's, I don't even know if the camera can really grasp, just how windy it is out here. Folks are really staying inside here at the shelter because, we shouldn't be out in the excessive wind that we're seeing right now. And it really comes and goes. And emergency management kind of let people know that as to stay off the roads, and that the winds are so strong right now that emergency responders, they're not going to be on the roads right now because it's not safe. Those conditions are not safe. As far as the folks that are here, there are about 330 people that are here. That's 60 pets, about 60 pets. We've got cats, we've got dogs, we even got a betta fish that's here sheltering and hunkering down at this elementary school. And for now, we're just kind of keeping an eye on the conditions. Obviously, you can see there, it's very, very windy, and we'll keep an eye on it and we'll send it back to you.
And taking a look, guys, there's a live look right now at the latest advisory. Again, we just got it out. I had to run over to the weather computer and make a new one. Winds are down another 5 miles an hour, down to 140, and the track really hasn't changed very much. There it is. So 2 a.m., we have a track that takes it in northeastern Polk County, and by tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, down to a tropical storm and moving. And I bring up Lake Wales because anybody here in 2004, Lake Wales was hit 3 times, dead smack on Lake Wales with Gene, with Francis, and with Charlie. And this storm, it's Charlie 2.0. Second landfall occurred on the mainland, pretty much right at about Punta Gorda. So we have a similar situation, a similar strength, a little bit bigger storm. With this one, we're going to be seeing more video out of Fort Myers and out of Naples, and that's where most of the water has been so far. But we are far from done with a surge issue. And this is something I've been stressing for most of the day. You still have an offshore flow across the Tampa Bay area, but there is still very heavy rain that's now moving into Hillsborough County. But even with that heavy rain, while there might be some flooding issues, and I think there will be, just because the rain is going so much, this is not from the surge. Remember, surge has nothing to do with rainfall. Surge is the storm pushing water either in or out, I guess you could say, of a body of water, whether it's a bay, whether it's an inlet. And over the last 6 to 12 hours, we've had a pretty pronounced offshore flow. In other words, the winds are blowing away. So there's no way, I don't care how much water's out there, you're not going to have an increase in water and surge when you have such a strong push out. I've been getting reports all afternoon, water anywhere from 4 to 10 feet below normal, and the bay has been dry yet again, just like it was with Irma 5 years ago. But at least for the time being, this is the area from southern Polk, southern Hillsborough County, and now southern St. Pete or southern Pinellas County. Matter of fact, I think we just had a wind gust of close to 75 miles an hour in St. Petersburg with this band. And these all continue to rotate. So if you live anywhere from downtown Tampa, eventually this is moving into Pinellas Park, over into Clearwater, this very heavy downpour. In the orange area, there's even more wind with it. So now we are just about to start experiencing the very heavy gusty winds, ones that I would compare almost identically to Irma 5 years ago. Most folks, and there were some trees down, there were some fences down, there were some issues with Irma, as most of Pinellas and Hillsborough County had winds between about 55 and 70 miles an hour. We just had a report of a wind gust. What was it, Greg, at the airport? It was around 70 in the 60s at TPA. So, I mean, this is a pretty potent, a little feisty band as it's coming back toward the coast with that counterclockwise flow. So you're going to get wind and you're going to get very heavy rain. And there's clearly more of it. Now, obviously, the bulk of the damaging winds is well to the south, and that's what they will be. I mean, we've had wind gusts reported Cape Coral at 135 miles an hour in the last hour. We have had reports of water surge about 14 to 16 feet in Fort Myers. In the immediate viewing area, now again, I understand, first of all, we have people listening to us, and second of all, with our streaming app, we have folks watching us from Charlotte and Lee County. So unfortunately, those are the areas that were hit the hardest. I mean, there's just no other way to spin it. We had winds of 100 to 110 sustained, and we had some areas just north and east of the eye with that water of about 14 to 16 feet. The extreme wind warning remains in effect in the purple area until 6 o'clock tonight. Now I'm going to take this off so you can see what's going on. There is the eye, and the second landfall, it made two landfalls. The first was on a barrier island. The second landfall on the mainland was pretty much right around Punta Gorda. So again, it is Charlie 2.0. That is now moved in, and I'd be interested to see how Mike Paluska is doing. We're going to try to reach him again because Venice has been picking up some very, very heavy wind as well. But that orange area right there, not only are you picking up lightning, it's still showing some lightning. So there's packing a punch there with winds probably of about 80 to 100 miles an hour. And it extends into Hardy and DeSoto and even farther north across Polk and into Hillsborough County. Grove City, a wind gust in the last half hour of 110 miles an hour. That is right there to the west-southwest of Port Charlotte. It's moved into Sarasota. It's moved into Manatee County. It's moved into Hillsborough County. And it's starting to rotate because think about it. As this moves north, all of this rotating backwards is going to move back toward coastal Manatee, Bradenton, up toward Longboat Key, up toward Pinellas County, although the track will probably keep it maybe in eastern Pasco, but I think much of Pasco County will likely be more of a near miss. So this is that updated track. Again, Cat 4 right now, winds of 140 miles an hour in a very small area. Yes, you are going to get wind reports of 120 and 125, but overall, by the time this moves into northern Hardy County and into Polk County, it will have weakened significantly. And as a matter of fact, overnight, as a Category 1 hurricane, moving into Polk County, once it passes the east-west line of the bay, and that's about 2 a.m., that to me would be the time we would have to consider the issues with storm surge at the next high tide. So the overnight high tide in Tampa, in the bay, is right around 4:30. By then, the storm will have moved north, so the winds will shift out of a more north, maybe not quite enough of a shift to cause water to come all the way around in. It's going to be close, but I do believe we're going to start to see that water rise up. But by then, it's going to be far enough east, and as Greg just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, not just far enough east, but quite a bit weaker. Remember, those earlier storm surge totals, That was a forecast for a Category 3 or a Category 4 hurricane. This go around, it's a 1 and weakening. So yes, I absolutely think we will see a buildup of water in some spots, but I just don't think the overall surge concerns will be as high as some of those forecasts are still showing of 4 to 6 feet. Maybe in a few months, and it's the better safe than sorry. Look, you don't want to go back in an area that you already know is flood prone as it is, and you throw in a surge issue. Although, as I said, by 4 o'clock, it's got to be really close whether the winds are coming in hard enough to actually get it into the bay. It's a close call, but it is a possibility. And then after that, the next high tide, 12 hours later, which brings us into about 5 o'clock in the afternoon on, what is today, Wednesday? On Friday, I think at that point, by then, it will have moved offshore more. So we'll keep our eyes on it. It is certainly not imminent in seeing a surge, but it is not a given that we're going to bypass it either. The faster this weakens, the less likely we're going to see a surge as that track continues north and takes it into the rest of Polk County and eventually out to sea. Again, Greg is going to have another look right now at that updated track and what that means wind-wise for the rest of the area, especially Hardy and Polk County. Greg?
Yeah, really looking at the radar analysis now of this, Dennis, as it continues to roll up. So if this track, and it took a little jog to the east, you see a couple of points, and now it seems to be resuming a track to the north-northeast. This has been the story with Ian, little jogs and shifts in the track, and the Hurricane Center just trying to keep up with it. If it continues on this track, then you would get some of the stronger winds back into portions of Polk and Hillsborough County. Let me show you the current radar now. Dennis already touched on this extreme wind warning down to the south, but it's not just that area that's getting the heavy rains. In fact, these rain bands now entering Hardy, Polk, southern and eastern Hillsborough, as well as Manatee County, they are producing some very strong winds. And I'm very curious to see, as this rotates into Tampa Bay, what kind of wind reports we're going to start to see out of some of these rain bands. What happens with these systems when they're over land, there are strong winds. There are actually really strong winds in the system, but they are just above the tree line. They're a few hundred feet up. You can sometimes see the clouds zooming out over your house. And it takes one of these heavier downpours to take those winds, which are higher up, and to shift them down towards the ground. And that's when you get some of those stronger gusts. That's why in the inland areas, the rain and the wind tend to ebb and flow. You get long periods of just quiet weather without any rain, without any strong winds. Then as soon as that rain picks up, the winds increase as well, and that's when you really start to feel the impact of the storm. So take a look at southern Pinellas over towards Hillsborough County, Manatee County back over towards Sarasota. This is just heavy rain. Parrish, Lakewood Ranch, the Meadows over towards Bradenton, Bayshore Gardens, back over towards Anna Maria, the Skyway. In the reds here, 301 and 75, you're really getting some very heavy rain. So there's one really heavy rain band north of 64 up through the Parrish area. That's one. And then there's a second one coming in out of the south and east. You see that in the corner there. It's heading down 70 and 64. So this is all going to pinwheel back to 301. So if you're in Bradenton Parish, you may get a bit of a break, Lakewood Ranch, and then you're going to get another heavy rain band. And the second one may even have stronger winds. That's kind of how this is going to work out. Each subsequent
Difficult difficulties. Stand by. Please stand by.